Yo, what's up? Welcome back to another episode of the SWUS. We're doing NBA Tuesday here. Had a great Monday night. Only bet 2 games, but hit them both. Had the over in the Knicks Rockets. I mean, they made us sweat a little bit, but ended up getting it pretty easily. Also had the Warriors. Warriors came through, even though the first quarter of that game, I was cursing Steph Curry out. I mean, the Warriors offense, I think they had 18 points in the first quarter. They looked so bad, but got both of them. So a 2-0 night for me. Let's move on to Tuesday night NBA. Let's do it.
I mean, is Cooper Rush worth 2.5 points?
I would hope Quinn Ewers put up a decent stat line against Arizona State. If he didn't, we have a real problem.
You can say the same thing about Creighton. Okay, they had the one good game against Kansas at home.
When Toast talks about the kicking market, it's like some earth is flat shit. Andy, true or false, this is going to be a dog walking.
Dog walking. This is my dog walking of the day. I think it's going to be very ugly. Dog walking. I think this is going to be ugly.
Hey, get the sauce. First up, we got Dallas on the road in Philadelphia to play the suddenly red-hot 70s. Well, you know what? The red-hot Sixers offense, I should say. Philly's laying here, -1 or -1.5, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at 224.5. Score projection for this one, Dallas 108, Philly 112. In the last 10 games, the Mavs are 19th offensively, 25th defensively, 12th in strength of schedule. Philly 10th, 30th defensively. They are first in strength of schedule in the last 10 games. So Philly, they've been scoring points against a strong schedule. That being said, I mean, if you actually look at the schedule, yeah, they played some good teams, but I mean, you got Denver on there twice. Sure, they're a top 10 team. They don't play any defense. You got the Lakers. Yeah, they're the 5 seed in the West. They're not playing much defense, especially on the road. You got Cleveland. That defense has been pretty ass recently. So, yeah, they have played a decently strong schedule recently. Not a ton of elite defenses. So, strength of schedule is definitely in question with this newly found red-hot Sixers offense. That being said, it's not like Dallas is playing any defense. They're 25th in the last 10 games. Injuries on the Dallas side. No Anthony Davis. He will not be making his Mavs debut in this one. Also, still no Derek Lively. So basically the starting front court missing for Dallas. A starting front court we've never seen play together for that matter, but both those guys are not going to play in this game. On the Philly side, who knows what team we're going to see out there. I mean, Caleb Martin is listed as questionable. Joel Embiid listed as questionable. Eric Gordon listed as questionable. Andre Drummond listed as questionable. The good news, if you're a Philly fan, is the Sixers have been playing some basketball, and none of these guys have been out there. The only player that has been playing that's listed as questionable is Eric Gordon. Paul George, Caleb Martin, Joel Embiid, Andre Drummond, they've all been out. So if they get those guys on the court, it'd be an addition to what they've been working with. So what do we think about this matchup? Well, like I said, Philadelphia is on a warpath right now. 6 covers in a row, 6-0 against the spread in their last 6, 4-2 straight up. Offensively, they're looking unstoppable. An offensive rating over 121 in their last 6 games. And for the first 3 quarters against Boston, they had no problems lighting it up. That's against the Celtics defense, a pretty good defense. So the Sixers offensively, they have found it. They're hitting the outside shot. They're scoring at the basket. They're doing it all on the offensive side of the ball. And that is definitely not great news for Dallas because they've been struggling on the defensive side of the ball. In their last 12 games, they're 4-8 against the spread, 4-8 straight up. So they've been struggling to cover, struggling to win games. Defensive rating over 118. So Dallas is going to go on the road to see this red-hot Philly offense, and they've been struggling to make stops. Now, normally, if the Mavs were fully healthy for this game, this should be a tough matchup for the Sixers offense. They love to attack the rim. They're 8th in shot frequency at the basket in the last 10 games. Plays into the strength of this Dallas defense. They're actually 1st in defensive efficiency at the rim in the last 10 games. So this should be a tough matchup, but with no Lively, no Anthony Davis, it's really just Daniel Gafford. Now, it's still a tough matchup because Gafford's been great defensively, but then you add on the fact that Dallas is struggling to defend the 3-point shot. They're actually 27th in defensive efficiency against the above the break 3. Philly's been launching them 6th in frequency, 5th in efficiency. So they've been taking a ton of threes. They've been hitting them at a high rate. I mean, I don't see any reason to doubt this Philadelphia offense. They seem unstoppable right now, definitely on a bit of a heater. So against a Dallas defense that's struggling, I'm just going to ride the hot hand here. I took Philadelphia -1. Next game, Boston Celtics on the road in Cleveland. The Cavs are laying 1.5 or 2, depending on your sports book. Total sitting at 235.5 in this one. In the last 10 games, Boston is 11th offensively, 6th defensively. That's against the 16th strongest schedule. Cleveland 1st offensively, 14th defensively against the 3rd strongest schedule. Score projection 113 for the Cavs, 108 for the Celtics. So score projection leaning towards Cleveland. You'll love to see it. Hate Boston. No injuries listed for the Celtics, so Boston should be at full strength for this one. On the Cleveland side, no Dean Wade, no Okoro, but that's not new. Both of those guys have been out. So both of these teams in pretty decent shape injury-wise. We'll start with the fact that Boston has not been covering. If you've been betting the Celtics, you are taking a bath recently. In their last 13 games, they're 8-5, so they're winning basketball games. They're just 4-9 against the number. In this instance, it's a little bit different. Boston's almost always laying. They're catching a 1.5 too. So a little bit of a different situation than we're used to seeing Boston in. But still, 4-9 against the spread. If you've been betting the Celtics, you are not turning a profit pretty much this whole year. In their 2 games against Cleveland this year, they're 1-1. So they split the 2 games this year, but they're 0-2 against the spread. So Cleveland has covered both times they saw Boston. And it makes sense that Cleveland would be a tough matchup for the Celtics. I mean, especially as of late. In the last 10 games, Cleveland's top 10 defensively against the above the break 3, 7th in frequency, 9th in efficiency. Obviously, we know that's where the Celtics take a ton of shots from. Their 1st in frequency, 3rd in efficiency. So the Cleveland defense, playing pretty tough out on the perimeter, should be a good matchup for the Cavs defensively here. That being said, in the 2 games, Cleveland covered both. Wasn't really the defense. In fact, Boston had a 117.2 offensive rating in their 2 games against Cleveland. So in their 2 games against Cleveland, it was not the Celtics offense that let them down. It was the defense. 118 defensive rating in their 2 games against the Cavs. So the Cavs had no problem scoring on the Celtics. Now, if we're talking about the Cleveland defense, obviously we need to mention the cold stretch, right? From January 5th to January 24th, the Cavs played 10 games. They were 5-5 straight up, 4-6 against the spread. Defense fell off a cliff. Defensive rating over 120 in that 10-game stretch. So this Cleveland Cavs defense looked like absolute trash through this 10-game stretch. But if you remember, Evan Mobley was banged up for a little bit in this stretch, and at the end of this, that's when they get Evan Mobley back. In their last 4 games, they're 4-0 straight up, 4-0 against the spread, defensive rating of 103. So is this Cavs defense all the way back? They've played 4 consecutive great defensive games. Now, does that necessarily mean we can trust them against Boston? Because they're also on a warpath offensively. In their last 5 games, they've got an offensive rating over 120. Effective field goal percentage just under 59%. So Boston's offense looks great. Granted, not a ton of great defenses here in their last 5 games. You got Dallas. We just talked about how they've been struggling defensively. Houston's been struggling defensively. So they've seen a bit of an easy schedule. Tough to make a prediction on this side. Boston's offense looks good, but it's against a bit of an easy schedule. Cleveland's defense looks really good, but it's just a 4-game stretch, and before that, they look terrible. So personally, if you're asking my opinion, I think Cleveland's defense has shown us enough. I think the Cavs defense is back. Will they shut Boston down? No, but I think they're able to give the Celtics offense some problems. The bigger problem for Boston is on the other side of the court. Not that the Celtics defense has been bad, a 113 defensive rating in their last 6 games. That's okay. I mean, it's not terrible against the Lakers, the Mavs, the Rockets, the Bulls, the Pelicans, the Sixers that are red hot. They've seen some high-powered offenses in there. I'm not saying the Celtics defense has been bad, but look specifically at the bottom right of this graphic. 3-point percentage in their last 6 games, 39.35%. That's what the last 6 opponents are shooting from beyond the arc against Boston. That's a problem when you're playing the Cavs because they light it up from outside. And by the way, Cleveland's probably the best offense in the NBA right now. In the last 14 games, this is not a small sample size, offensive rating over 123, just about a 61% true shooting percentage. So yeah, again, not that Boston's defense looks terrible, but I don't think anyone can stop this Cleveland offense right now, which is why at this short number, I hate to say it because I'm a known Cavs hater. I'm not really a Cavs hater. I just get accused of being one. I think you got to take Cleveland here based on recent production. So at this short number, I haven't bet it yet. I'm leaning towards the Cavs money line. Next game, Houston on the road in Brooklyn. The Nets are catching 9 or 9.5, depending on your sports book. Total sitting all the way down at 208.5. Score projection for this one, 107.7 for the Rockets, 102.3 for the Nets. In the last 10 games, the Rockets are 12th offensively, 16th defensively against the 2nd strongest schedule. Brooklyn 28th offensively, 12th defensively against the 8th strongest schedule. Injuries in this one, obviously we don't have a report yet for the Rockets. They just finished the game in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks. I would imagine this is what the injury report's going to be. Şengün will probably be questionable. Van Vliet and Jabari Smith are both out long-term. Van Vliet is week to week, so they're both going to be out. I would imagine Şengün is going to be questionable. He was questionable leading up to the Knicks game, ended up not playing. So I'd say there's probably a chance that Şengün plays in this game. On the Brooklyn side, they're missing all kinds of pieces. None of them really new except for Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons has been ruled out. Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, Noah Clowney, all out for the Nets. So this is a pretty simple handicap for me. You got the Rockets on the road, 7-2 straight up in their last 9 road games, 7-1-1 against the spread. The Rockets have been almost automatic on the road. They just covered against the Knicks earlier tonight. Even though they didn't win the game, they did cover the plus 6.5 closing line. So you got the Rockets on the road. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be concerned about laying 9 points on the road with 0 days rest. On the season, the Rockets are 4-4-1 against the spread, 4-5 straight up with 0 days rest. So how could you lay 9 points with a team on 0 days rest against a rested Nets team? Well, here's how you can do it. The Nets don't have Ben Simmons, and he is just a difference maker for them. I think they're 9-5 against the spread in the last 14 games where Simmons has played. It's 9-5 or 9-6, something like that. The last 11 games without Ben Simmons on the floor, the Nets are 2-9 against the spread, 1-10 straight up. Without Ben Simmons, the Nets are basically Wizards territory. Auto fade, worst team in the NBA. So I know laying 9 with no rest on the road sounds crazy. I did it. I'm on the Rockets here. Houston -9 next game. The New York Knicks, fresh off a huge win over Houston, immediately fly up to Toronto to play the Raps. Toronto's catching 5.5 points at home. Total sitting at 231.5. Score projection for this one is 113.9 for New York, 108.8 for Toronto. In the last 10 games, the Knicks are second offensively, 17th defensively, 11th in strength of schedule. In the last 10 games, the Raptors are first in defensive efficiency. I still can't get over that. 21st in offensive rating. They have the 27th. They're 27th in strength of schedule in that span, though. So we do have to take some of the Raptors' recent numbers with a grain of salt. They played an easy schedule. Injuries on the New York side. Josh Hart is listed as questionable. Now, normally I'd say, hey, Josh Hart's always listed as questionable. He always plays. But considering they're on a back-to-back, I think it's something we have to keep an eye on. I think it's very realistic that Josh Hart doesn't play in this game. OG Anunoby didn't play last night against the Rockets. He's listed as questionable. He just tweaked his ankle in the Lakers game. Really don't know what the status of OG Anunoby is. I know that he's not ruled out, though. As I'm recording this, he is listed as questionable. On the Raptors side, they're in pretty good shape. You got a couple question marks, but for the most part, the Raptors are pretty healthy here. Now, this Raptors team, let's talk about this matchup. This Raptors team definitely proved me wrong on Sunday when they beat the Clippers. If you remember, the game before that quickly came back, and I took the Bulls money line, and everyone hated it. Everyone was on Toronto. Took the Bulls money line. I said the Raptors defense is going to fall off a cliff now that all those minutes are going from Shed over to Quickly. And I was right. I won that one with the Bulls money line. Then I faded the Raptors on Sunday because of how good the Clippers had looked with Kawhi Leonard. I thought 5 was a gift. It wasn't even close. The Raptors controlled that game start to finish. So maybe this Raptors hot streak isn't completely dead yet. They did just pick up a huge win over the Clippers. It was a Sunday afternoon game in Toronto. Not exactly the spot you'd expect to see the Clippers' best fastball. That's something to keep in mind. But you know what? We're getting the Knicks in kind of a similar spot here. Coming off the huge win over Houston in Madison Square Garden. Immediately flying up to Toronto. On 0 days rest this year, the Knicks are 1-5 against the spread. So New York hasn't been good. I believe 1-5 against the spread is the worst in the NBA. So New York really hasn't covered in these spots. So, yeah, they just caught the Clippers in maybe what was an ugly spot. They're now getting the Knicks in what is probably an ugly spot here. And then considering we saw New York fly up to Toronto earlier in the season back in December, the Knicks were laying 8. The Raptors covered, played a competitive game. I would have to lean towards Toronto here. I guess I was wrong. I mean, I don't know how much we should read into these last 2 data points for the Raptors. They got beat by the Bulls, then followed it up by beating the Clippers. So considering the fact that Quickly's back in the lineup, I feel like I'm kind of catching my bearings here as far as having a feel for Toronto. If I was forced to bet this game, I would take the plus 5.5 for the Raptors and fade the ugly spot for the Knicks. Also, Josh Hart, Anunoby, who's going to be playing. I would say probably Toronto plus 5.5. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up betting the Raptors plus the points here. As of right now, I don't have it down, though. Next up, we got Miami on the road in Chicago. The Bulls are catching 3.5 points at home. Total sitting at 228.5 for this one. Projected score 113.8 for the Heat, 114.5 for the Bulls. In the last 10 games, Miami is 25th offensively, 19th defensively, 10th in strength of schedule. The Bulls 26th offensively, 15th defensively, 20th in strength of schedule. So neither neither of these teams have been playing particularly well. Inactives on the Miami side, we got no Jimmy Butler, we got no Josh Richardson. That's obviously not new. Duncan Robinson is on the report, but I believe he's just been upgraded to probable. I just saw that a few minutes ago. So I think Duncan Robinson is going to play. It's just going to be Butler and Richardson missing for the Heat. On the Chicago side, we got Jalen Smith listed as questionable. Other than that, we should be seeing the Bulls at full strength here. Now let's get into this one, and this is very interesting. Check this out. So let's start with rebounds and turnovers, and look at this. So both these teams have been excellent rebounding the ball on the defensive side. In the last 10 games, the Bulls are 5th in defensive rebounding rate. The Heat are 1st. So we're talking about 2 top 5 defensive rebounding teams and 2 bottom 10 offensive rebounding teams. So safe to say we're not going to see many second chance opportunities in this game. And check it out on the same graphic, turnovers. In the last 10 games, the Bulls defense 27th in forced turnover rate, the Heat defense 29th. So neither of these teams get offensive rebounds and neither force turnovers, which in my opinion should be conducive for an under. We're going to see longer possessions and possibly less fast breaks. So you like that if you're betting the under. Also, we know this Bulls defense isn't any good, but they actually have decent numbers against spot-up shooters. 10th in defensive efficiency, 10th in points per game allowed via spot-up shooters. That actually plays into one of the Miami Heat's strengths offensively. So this actually might not be a bad matchup for the Bulls defense, and it actually gets better than that. We know Chicago's strong against the above-the-break three-point shot. That's been the case all year. They're 2nd in defensive efficiency out there in the last 10 games, 3rd on the full season. Heat love shooting those above-the-break threes, 8th in frequency in the last 10. So again, I mean, might be a good matchup for the Bulls defensively, but check this out. On the other side, it's an even better matchup for the Heat defense. Chicago, as we know, is an offense that loves to get out in transition, 2nd in frequency, 2nd in points per game via transition. Miami 3rd in frequency on the defensive side, meaning the Heat do not let you get out and run on them, same as they did last year, and they're actually improving in that department. Check this out. Prop Beaver put returning to form on the graphic, and that's a perfect way to phrase it. If you remember, Miami was elite at this last year. You could not run the fast break against Miami last year. As far as this season, it's been a little streaky in that department, but it looks like they're starting to round into form here on the last 4 games. Excellent numbers against the fast break. And honestly, the entire Miami defense seems to be rounding into form. In those same last 4 games, they got a 110 defensive rating, which isn't elite, but certainly much better than they were in the previous 6 games, up over 120. So the Heat seem to be back on track on the defensive side of the ball, and it's shown in the results. In their last 4 games, 2-2 against the spread, 3-1 straight up, compared to the terrible run they were on in the 6 games prior to that. So definitely lean towards the Heat side. I also lean towards the under at 228.5. I'm a little gun shy on it though. I just lost an under in the Bulls-Pistons game on Sunday. Now I know the Heat are not the Pistons, but I'm a little hesitant to go right back to the well here and bet an under in a Chicago Bulls game. They play such a fast pace. They love to get out on the fast break. I mean, it feels crazy to go back and try another under in a Bulls game, but I truly think it's a good matchup for both defenses, especially Miami's, and I think Miami's going to do their best to keep the Bulls from getting out in the fast break. So I'd lean towards the under and the Heat, but honestly, Bulls team total under might be the look here, and I'm kind of talking myself into that. Give me the Bulls team total under. I'll let you know in the live show if I bet it, but I think there's a good chance I'm going to pull the trigger on that next game. Lakers, Clippers in LA. The Clips are laying, looks like 8, 7.5, somewhere in there. Total's hitting at 219.5, 220, 220.5, somewhere in there. Score projection 106.2 for the Lakers, 110.9 for the Clips. In the last 10 games, the Lakers numbers look pretty good. 9th offensively, 4th defensively. Look at the bottom left, though. 30th in strength of schedule in the last 10 games. That being said, the Clippers are 29th in strength of schedule in the last 10 games. So in the last 10 games, these two teams have played the 2 easiest schedules in the NBA. Both have been playing some decent basketball, though. Injury-wise, we are not going to see Luka Doncic debut with the Lakers. I don't even know when that's going to be. I'm reading it could be in a week or two. Who knows? No Christian Wood either for this Laker team. On the other side, it looks like the Clippers are going to be completely good to go here. So we should see the Clips at full strength. But honestly, I'm starting to have some doubts with this Clippers team. If you subscribe to this channel, I was gassing up the Clippers defense with Kawhi Leonard. I was like, 103 defensive rating when Kawhi Leonard's on the floor. I was like, this Clippers team looks so good with Kawhi. And that was true. Starting to trend in the wrong direction, though. Starting to look like that take may have been wrong of mine. In their first 7 games with Kawhi, 5-2 straight up, 6-1 against the spread. In their last 5 games with Kawhi, 2-3 against the spread, 3-2 straight up. Now, it's just 5 games. Let's not overreact. But look at the defensive rating. The first 7 games with Kawhi Leonard, defensive rating under 99. That's best defense in the NBA territory. Absolutely elite. In their last 5 games with Kawhi Leonard, defensive rating over 114. So this elite Clippers defense that I was gassing up with Kawhi Leonard hasn't been all that elite in their last handful of games. And this is a Lakers team that is on a hot streak right now. They're 6-1 straight up in their last 7 games, 6-1 against the spread, including a huge dominant win in Madison Square Garden against a very good Knicks team. And offensively, where did this come from? In their last 7 games, they have an offensive rating over 120. In their last 2 games, without Anthony Davis, granted one was against the Wizards, a 131 offensive rating without Anthony Davis. LeBron's playing great basketball right now, and the offense is humming, specifically the fast break. Over 18% fast break frequency, over 138 fast break efficiency, plays into the weakness of the Clippers defense. The Clips may have great defensive numbers with Kawhi Leonard on the floor this year, but A, they're starting to trend in the wrong direction, like I just pointed out, and B, they've actually struggled against the fast break. Defensive efficiency over 141 against the fast break in the 12 games that Kawhi's played. So that actually might be a positive angle for this Lakers team, especially without Anthony Davis. They get out and run more. That actually could present a problem for the Clippers defensively. Now, at this point, you're probably thinking, we got to go hammer the Lakers right now. And I'm not saying you're wrong if that's what you want to do. I will say the reason I'm a little hesitant is right here. I mean, the Lakers without Anthony Davis cannot rebound. I mean, they just got out-rebounded by the Wizards. I don't know if they got out-rebounded in that game, but in their last 2 games without Anthony Davis, I mean, a 65.7% defensive rebounding rate is terrible. Offensive rebounding rate under 21%. I mean, these are terrible rebounding numbers here, and the Clippers have been a very good rebounding team when Kawhi Leonard's on the floor. So it's tough to bet on a team knowing they're about to get dominated on the glass. Puts us in a tough spot. I do think if I'm the Lakers, I want to get out and run here. So maybe a Lakers team total over. But to be honest, with the trade and all the shit that's going on with the Lakers right now, I can almost guarantee this is going to be a pass for me. We'll go through every game on the board, 4 p.m. Eastern time on the live stream. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you in the comments. If you want to see all the bets I currently have open, head over to KyleKirms.com and click on Open Bets. Then click on Sauce, and you'll see all mine there, as well as everyone else on the staff. Let's have ourselves a great Tuesday here. Had a great Monday night. Let's keep it rolling. Remember to bet responsibly. Hit me up in the Discord if you need me.